Hey, what's going on, guys? It's your old pal CHH here. It's always a good day when we've got a Scream Factory title that's kind of lost on physical media, and a lot of people haven't had it. And today that movie is Dr. Giggles. This is the new Blu-ray from Scream Factory. I've got a few things to say about this that aren't necessarily super praiseworthy, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily a bad thing, especially if you don't own this movie. So let's just get right into it. I'd be remiss not to say a few words about Dr. Giggles without spoiling too much. This is a early 90s slasher film that really knows what it is and succeeds in that capacity for sure. I think Dr. Giggles is a movie for everybody that's seen it, that's into horror. They can enjoy it. They'll never say it's one of the greatest things ever, but it's super fun. And when it comes to like the 90s kind of slasher game, there's some titles that work fairly well. Movies like this and Popcorn and other kind of slasher films that are kind of one-offs that kind of live in that nebulous kind of weird time. And Dr. Giggles is one of them. You know, a lot of people like to double feature Dr. Giggles and then The Dentist. You know, Dr. Giggles is about this doctor. There's this massive incident that happens, and Larry Drake, who plays Dr. Giggles, hides away for 30 years, starts to come back and wreak havoc on the kids. This movie's also notable for having Mark from Roseanne on the show. He plays the boyfriend, and good actor. And in terms of the acting in this, everybody does a very serviceable job. They know that they're in a 90s slasher film, and it's good, but that doesn't mean that the quality's bad. This movie actually has pretty good production quality, so I was pretty pleased with that. It actually had somewhat of a hearty budget, so the movie is a big thing. It starts out with the Universal logo on the beginning, so Dr. Giggles is super fun. Larry Drake has so many great one-liners. My favorite is, "If you think that hurt, where do you get my bill?" Dr. Giggles is just a really fun early 90s horror slasher film, and it's gotten somewhat of a cult status, and I think a little bit more of it now is because it's kind of talked about, like, oh, have you seen Dr. Giggles? And I think a lot of people, they haven't because it's hard to own it. But finally, we can solve that now with the new Blu-ray from Scream Factory. Let's talk about the release. I will say I owned a German Blu-ray of Dr. Giggles. I got it a few years ago. And what was exciting to me was hearing that this was going to be a new restoration from the Inner Positive. And I'll say that for a Blu-ray and for the ability for people to own this movie, that's fine. If you, for some reason, already own this movie, maybe from, I know there's like this lenticular slip version of Dr. Giggles, or you have that German Blu-ray that I'm talking about, unfortunately, the picture quality on this is really not that impressive, especially compared to that. Again, a lot of people, this is going to be their first time owning this movie, and if that's the case, this doesn't really apply to you. I just will say, don't expect this to look insanely good. It's got some moments that certainly look better from the old release that I have, like the daytime sequences and stuff. Everything will be a little bit more shiny and look good, but other stuff, it just looks pretty good. I mean, they certainly upscaled what they could for this, but unfortunately, like, there's no new groundbreaking scan. So if you're somebody that already has a release of this and you're not really into special features, but you want to see this movie in better picture quality, you may not need to get this. I'll be honest with you. Not holding it against Scream Factory. Obviously, I think that they did the best they could with whatever they had, which I believe was the Inner Positive. So who knows if there's a negative floating out there. Maybe not, considering they didn't use that. Otherwise, you would assume that they would have used the negative to restore Dr. Giggles on Blu-ray. But there's still some good special features, so let's talk about that right now. After is the Best Medicine, the making of Dr. Giggles, featuring a new interview with director Manny Cotto and a never-before-seen archival interview with Larry Drake. So I watched that, and that was really good. So I will say it was extremely informative. It had a decent length to it. It was at least like 20 minutes, and the director goes into a lot about the making of the film, the budget, how Larry Drake approached the film, how the film was supposed to be tone-wise, and how the producers and stuff started saying, hey, let's kind of leverage this more into like a fun slasher thing. A lot of great information there, so I'm happy I have this. Don't get me wrong. Bonus features here were good. So this new making of, I enjoyed it a lot. The director talked in a really good light about the film and had a lot of good things to say and informative. He obviously has a good memory about everything that happened, so it's always good to me when somebody can actually really articulate what the hell went on when they were making this film, because some people, they just forget everything. I'm one of them. I have no idea what I just ate for lunch, and that was 2 hours ago. Also, we have the Melodies of Madness, the film scores of Brian May, featuring a new interview with a film historian, Randall D. Larson. I'll be honest with you, when I was getting ready to watch this, I was just kind of rolling my eyes like, I'm going to hear about Brian May from somebody else. But this ended up being really cool. Odds are you've watched a ton of movies with Brian May doing the music for it, and this actually covered a lot of it, and how this was Brian May later in his career when he did this movie, the score for this movie, and it talked about a lot of the stuff he did before. It ended up being really informative, so kudos to that film historian who did the voiceover and the explanations for everything. So it ended up being actually a really cool featurette, and so the special features on here, there's not a bunch, but the making of with the director, 2 thumbs up on that. That ended up being really, really informative and cool, and I actually ended up really digging listening to that film historian talk about Brian May, because he's one of the greatest composers ever. Other stuff you're going to have is featurettes, vintage featurettes, theatrical trailers, the VHS teaser, and a TV spot. So there it is, guys. Dr. Giggles on Blu-ray. If you've never seen this movie before and you don't own it, it's certainly worthy of a blind buy, I promise you. If you're into slasher films, especially just candy slasher films in a sense, just junk food, fun, entertaining slasher films, nothing too serious in tone, you'll love Dr. Giggles. And Larry Drake is super funny. He gets it. He understood what movie he was doing, and his one-liners and delivery are out of this world entertaining. So this movie works because of Larry Drake 1000%, and the opening of the film is really funny too. So I'm going to give this release 1 thumb up. I'm not holding it against Scream Factory. I think that they had the best elements they could to work with, but if you were hoping for a really good picture quality release, this isn't exactly going to do it. I'd say it's probably about 15% better, maybe even just 10% better than that German Blu-ray I had. But again, a lot of people never own this, so it's not going to matter to them. So I'm going to give this release 1 thumb up. Dr. Giggles on Blu-ray. I'll leave an Amazon affiliate link down below if you want to order it. Really fun slasher film with some really fun one-liners. If you haven't seen it, definitely pick it up and check it out. Thank you guys for watching this. Please drop a thumbs up for me. Sub to the channel if you haven't, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you to all of my Patreon supporters who make videos like this possible. To get behind-the-scenes photos, videos, music, private live streams, and more, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Thank you very much.